Dun, dun. So when you're ready, just bring yourself to the mat. I'm going to use my bolster today because I just fancy getting cozy, but just find your version of a child's pose. So letting yourself come down. You can take the forehead onto the mat, maybe give it a gentle rock from side to side. If you do have a bolster, you can let one cheek or the other just rest. And I want you to really focus on today trying to expand or release or open the lower back. So child's pose is a phenomenal pose for opening up into the lower back. We're opening the hips. Hips and the lower back are basically, see them as one unit. They very often, lower back pain can come from the hips and vice versa. So I want you to just feel like the left and the right hip are just melting down towards the mat, sinking towards the heels. And as the left and right hip melt down, this opens up, this pulls into the lower back. And obviously we're not thinking about the spine expanding, but we're thinking about those muscles that connect to the spine and connect to the hips. These muscles getting a really nice stretch, that opening in the lower back. When we sit, we compress into the lumbar spine. Lumbar spine is really strong. It's the biggest part of our vertebrae. So they're really big, chunky bones with really big padding in between those vertebrae. But they do take a lot of weight, a lot of pressure. And so we're just gonna give the lower back some love today. Let it have a little release. So just start to focus on deepening the breath now. So elongating your inhale. And as you exhale, working on really getting into that release. So sinking those hips, opening up into that lower back. And as you breathe, breathe into the back body. So the front of the body is compressed right now. And so we really want to focus on breathing into the back ribs. Breathing into that thoracic chamber. Thoracic chamber is essentially the upper back. And you have 12 thoracic vertebrae, which mirror your 12 sets of ribs. So 12 vertebrae, 12 ribs. This is your thoracic chamber. And the ribs that wrap all the way around, they expand on the back. So just really see if you can feel the back ribs moving. We don't often think about the back ribs. And the sides. And maybe even just taking a couple exhales out of the mouth, just letting go, releasing there. And keeping the hips really heavy, start to walk the hands forwards. So maybe crawling them one after the other. Thinking about lengthening from the fingertip to the palm, from the wrist to the armpit, and from the armpit to the hip. Maybe even coming up onto the tips of those fingers. Really opening up, creating space. We're going to take our child's pose for a little walk, opening up into the lateral sides of the waist. So start to walk your hands over to the right. You can take your left hand on top. You might need to move the forehead along to place it between the arms. And then we're going to focus on really opening up into the left side of the waist. So sink down through the left hip and try to open up through that left side, those left ribs. And this is lateral, so the sides of the body. And then just gently walk yourself back through center, over to the left this time. Right hand comes on top. And this time, trying to press that right rib cage out as you sink that right hip down. Belly still soft between those thighs. Good. And then gently walk back through center. Plug the hands. Lift your forehead. Just look to the hands and actively press the hands down to pull yourself up into tabletop position. So tracking the wrists underneath the shoulders, knocking the knees in slightly so they're underneath the hips. And then just starting to move through those cat-cows. So belly starts to drop, sit bones rise, gazing up. And then as you exhale, pushing the floor away. Rounding the back, crown of head down, tailbone down. And just continue to move like this, using the breath, finding the stretch on the anterior, the front side of the body as you inhale, and the back side of the body as you exhale. Nice. And then come back to center. We're going to do some lateral cat-cow. So we're really trying to move in all areas of the spine. So you're going to keep your belly button centered on the mat. Take an inhale. And as you exhale, bring the right shoulder and the right hip towards each other. So you're moving from the top and the tail of the spine. Back to center as you inhale. And as you exhale, left shoulder, left ear, left hip towards each other. Good. Back to center. Just continue to move like this. Exhale brings you over to the side. Inhale brings you back to center. And just feeling into the sides of the waist as you do this. Nice. And then back to center again. We're going to keep our right hand on the mat. Peel your left hand up to the sky. Really feel into the twist before we move, trying to take the gaze up if that feels okay. And then you're going to thread your left arm under, taking left ear and left shoulder down. Bum stays nice and high. Let the shoulder be heavy. Then start to walk your right hand forwards. So just stretching along the right arm. And then bringing that arm up to the sky, turn the palm away from you and wrap it around the waist. Maybe grabbing onto your waistband or into the hip if you can get the arm that far. And then try to pull that right shoulder back. So you're twisting again in that thoracic. Breathing here, opening up. Nice. And then gently unravel right hand onto the floor. Place it on the floor just by the face. And as you inhale, push into the mat, lift that left hand up to the sky. Nice. Left hand comes back down, finding that tabletop. This time, left hand stays put, right hand reaches high. Look up to that hand as you lengthen. Stay there for a moment. And then start to thread the arm under. Good. Letting the ear come down. And then walking that left hand forwards. So as that left hand comes forwards, just feel into the stretch. Let your ear and shoulder be really heavy. And then bring that left hand high, turn the palm away from you and wrap it around the waist. Again, just grabbing onto whatever you can here. And then opening up into that left shoulder. So wrapping that left scapula back, thinking about turning the chest up to the sky. And then unravel, hand comes down by the face, push into the floor. Inhaling, that right arm comes back up to the sky. And then bringing that hand down. Good. Again, finding that tabletop position, always slightly drawing the belly in tabletop so that we're not collapsing in that lower back. We don't want our tailbone pointed up. We want the tailbone pointed straight behind us. Nice. Tuck your right toe, drag that right toe behind you, kick into the heel, feel that nice stretch in the calf and the hamstring. Left foot's going to go out to the side and then drop your right foot. Take your left hand slightly forwards and then start to bring your right hand up to the sky. Reach here, open up, look to the hand, turn the palm to face the same direction that the head's going, and then bring that arm over the head. You can let your left ear soften to your left shoulder. Reach, 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 reach here. And then maybe even twizzle the chest to face up slightly. Press the outside edge of that back foot into the mat, reaching and breathing here. Good. Let's lift that right hand back up to the sky and then see if you can take a supported side plank. So lifting that right foot off the floor. Good. Either staying here or if you want to, you're going to bend that back knee, reach for the foot. Taking a little back bend here, press your hips forwards, kick into your hand, and we're just going to hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release, open back out. You're going to take your right hand down and then you're going to step your right foot forward. So we're going to take a nice deep hip opener, 2 versions of lizard. So if you want to, you can grab your blocks if you need them. If you don't need them, don't worry. So the first variation of lizard, we're going to do quite strict. So I want you to press the whole foot down and hug your right knee into your right tricep. As you sink forwards in the hips, just make sure that your front knee isn't overshooting the ankle. You don't want it to look like this, okay? So the whole foot is down, and you might even have your ankle slightly in front of that knee. Good. Hugging that knee in, finding that stretch in the back leg as that back leg is an extension. And then feeling into that front thigh, that front hip, deep flexion here. So we're going to hold each of these variations of lizard. We're just doing 2 for about 2 minutes. So close the eyes. If you feel like you need to take the blocks higher or you need to come up a little bit higher on the hands, do so. Slow the breath. Try to not lock out those elbows. You can always drop down onto the forearms if that feels comfortable. Especially if those wrists are bothering you for any reason. Last 30 seconds here. If you have any kind of pain in that back knee, just double up the mat. You can just fold the mat in half at the back. We don't ever want to feel any issues in the joints, especially pressure. We can always cushion it. Nice. Okay. If you're down on the forearms, come back onto the hands. You're going to turn your right toe out at 45 degrees. So toes are kind of going out to the side. Then start to tip onto what's called the knife edge of the foot. So the big toe comes off the mat. Now, option 1, just simply stay here, letting that knee knock out. Option 2, you can take your right hand into the thigh and gently press that thigh out as you turn to spin and open up the chest. You can also deepen this by dropping down onto your left forearm and push the knee out. So any of those options are fine. Option 1 is also totally fine. Again, close the eyes, deepen the breath. It's another 2-minute hold here. One minute left. Okay, so to come out of this, you're going to lift off the forearms if you drop down. We're going to come into a closed leg child's pose. So bring your right knee behind your left, or not behind, sorry, just in line. And then you might need a block. You're going to bring your head down either onto the floor or onto the block, and then hands come behind you, palms face up. So if the head reaches the floor easily, then do that. And again, what I want you to do is really release and open into that lower back. So again, imagining that the left and the right hip are dropping down, releasing, and that you're spreading and opening into the lower back. Good. And then walk those hands forwards, bringing yourself back onto your hands and knees, finding that tabletop, not letting the tailbone poke up. We're going to tuck the left toe and drag that left toe behind us, kicking into that heel, finding that stretch. Right toe goes slightly out to the side, and then drop the left foot down. As you do this, start to bring your left hand up to the sky. Look up to that hand, turn the palm to face forwards, and then start to bring the arm over the head. As you do this, let your right ear soften to your right shoulder. And just allow that stretch all the way along the left side from the outer ankle all the way to the fingertips. And then start to bring that hand back up. Find your balance. Lift that left leg. Really kick into that left heel, okay? That's what's going to help with the balance. Option 1, stay here, or option 2, bend that knee, grab a hold of the foot. Now, once you've got the foot, kick into the hand. This is going to send the hips forwards. You might let the head drop back towards the foot. And we stay for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly start to release. Bring your hand down and then step your left foot to the outside of that left hand. Again, as you sink forwards, walk that foot forwards. We're going to find that first variation of lizard, okay? So sinking forwards, grabbing the blocks if you need them. You want your toe, your big toe, to be facing forwards. You want to hug your left knee and make connection with your left arm. Then starting to sink forwards, opening up into the front of your right hip and feeling that crease in the left. Closing the eyes. You can let the head be heavy. Try not to lock out the elbows. You can take the blocks on any height, or you can bring the forearms down onto them. You can also just have the hands or the forearms on the floor as well. See if you can elongate the exhales, so lengthen out the exhales. One minute in. Keep hugging that knee in. Try not to roll onto the outside edge of that left foot. Nice. Okay, come back onto the hands. If you lowered down, you're going to take left toes, point them out to the side about 45 degrees. Then start to let that knee drop out. You might feel like you've got more space here when we let that leg go into external rotation. You can take left hand into that thigh, pushing, twisting, opening up. You can also drop down onto your right thigh, or your right forearm rather, if that is available for you. Option one is always totally fine. Just simply allowing the hips to come down and the knee to open. Again, we're going to stay here for 2 minutes. Sometimes more challenging for the mind than the body. Stay with those deep breaths. Notice where you want to fidget, where you want to move. Good. Okay, we're going to come out the same way that we did on the other side. So slowly start to push yourself back onto your hands. Slide that left knee back. And then slowly move into that closed child's pose. So hands come down, arms behind you, forehead either on the mat or a block. And again, just let those hips release. Let those hips be heavy, opening into the lower back. Good. And then eventually bring yourself up. Just sit on the heels for a moment and just bring your hands into fists. And I want you to just rotate your fists, or your wrists rather, just kind of easing out any tension if you've been on the hands the whole time. The next pose we're going to come into is a downward dog. It's going to be a shorter, wider downward dog, but we're going to hold for 3 minutes. I'm going to call out the minutes as they pass. And if you need to come down, if you can't hold for the whole time, that is totally fine. This is a really great pose to open up the back. So when you're ready, you're going to bring your hands down, and then you're just going to tuck your toes and find a downward dog. From here, you're going to take your feet as wide as your mat. Again, so we're trying to open up into the lower back. And you can walk the hands and the feet a little bit closer together. So I'm in quite a short version of my downward dog. It makes it easier for my heels to come down. Okay, because I've got quite tight hamstrings, where if I come into my classic downward dog, there's no chance that my heels will touch. But with my feet closer, they do. Don't worry if yours don't. Spread the fingers. Don't worry, I've started the time already. Maybe take a soft bend in the knees, and then see if you can push your weight back a little bit. Let the head be heavy. Little nod and shake. And then just try to find a moment of stillness here. So remember that I'll call out the minutes as they pass. Notice where you're feeling the intensity of the pose now. And as the time progresses, maybe notice where that intensity moves to. So you're 1 minute in. Again, with a lot of these poses, it is mind over matter, which is part of yoga. Two minutes in. Can you do 60 more seconds? Fight the urge to come out. Almost there. Good. Okay, from here, slowly move, starting to bring the knees down. You're going to walk the hands forwards, and we're going to come straight into Sphinx. So the forearms and the elbows might come down first. Don't worry if you feel a little bit like a Tin Man. Gently start to bring the hips onto the mat. Walk the elbows forwards until they're directly under the shoulders. Legs don't have to be touching, just have them nice and long. Let the ribs melt down. Pull the heart forwards, looking at forwards but down and on an angle so that you're not looking up, because this will crease the back of the neck. And maybe slightly draw the elbows back. So you just have this magnetic pull of the elbows back. They're not actually going to kind of draw towards the hips. And just feel into this. See if you can let the scapula and the shoulders just slowly melt away from the ears. Nice. And then start to bend your left knee. So left knee comes in. And then you're going to reach around with your left hand and grab a hold of that foot. And we're going to start to push down quite hard. And you're going to try to bring your heel to the outside of the butt. Okay, so mine is not that flexible, but I'm not bringing it in towards center. I'm kind of going out a little bit to the side. If you can, try to stay centered on your right elbow. And also try to turn your chest back forwards. This is going to open up into your left shoulder. Good. And we'll just hold here for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Release. Keep the left foot up, bringing yourself down. And then take your right hand straight out to the side. So right arm is going to look like this arm, but it's your right, out to the side. And then turn your gaze to the left. Take your left hand onto the mat. Right arm is straight. You're going to push into your left hand and start to bring your left foot over your right. Okay, so if you have the mobility in your right shoulder, you'll be able to kind of twist over and your knee will face up. Don't worry if you don't have that mobility in your shoulder. If you are very mobile in the shoulder, you might be able to get both feet on the floor, both knees facing up, but don't worry if that's not you today. You can press into your left hand to open more or less. So the more that you push into the hand, the more the shoulder will open. And the more that you ease off, the less intense it will be. Always want to be slightly careful with our shoulders. You want to feel the stretch, but you don't want to like superhero into it. Good. Slowly start to roll back onto the belly. Bringing those elbows underneath you again. Under the shoulders, finding that Sphinx pose. And then bend your right knee. This time reaching around with your right hand to grab that foot, pushing it down. And then once you're there, pull your right shoulder back around so that your right shoulder and your left shoulder are in line. Aiming one day to get the heel of that foot to the outside of your right butt cheek. We'll hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Release. Keep that right foot up. Come down onto the belly. This time, left arm straight out to the side. So you want your arm going parallel with the front of your mat. And then look to the left. Bend your left elbow, placing the hand by the face. Start to roll over, taking this time right foot over that left leg. Good. Again, don't worry if the knee doesn't face up. Maybe your shoulder's not that mobile. That's fine. Maybe you can get both feet on the floor, but mostly just feel into the stretch. Okay. Sensation over destination. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Just feel into it. And again, you can push into that right hand to deepen the stretch. Nice. Slowly, slowly, slowly start to roll back onto the belly. Coming straight back into that Sphinx pose. Now we're actually going to maneuver into a really nice shoulder opener. It doesn't sound nice, but it's called straight jacket. So what you're going to do is slide your left elbow slightly forwards as you thread your right arm underneath. So right arm comes underneath the left, palm faces up. Then you're going to take that left arm and thread it across. So the left palm is facing up. So both hands are facing up. Now you might be tipping over to your right shoulder. So what I want you to do is even the weight between the shoulders. Now the more intense, you just pull the arms in opposite directions. If that's too intense, then just bring the elbows back more in line with where they started. Then just let the shoulders release. Let the upper body be heavy. Head hangs, you might rest your cheek on one of the arms, but just totally kind of flop into it. So it's the weight of your own body. Nice deep breaths. Good. Okay, lift the head. You're going to slide your left arm first, taking that elbow back onto the floor. Push into the left arm to get the right arm to move, coming back into Sphinx. This time, slide the right arm forwards, left arm threads under, right arm comes in front. Both hands face up. If you're tipping more to one side or the other, just see if you can even that weight distribution, and then let the head be heavy. Depending on lots of things, depending on how mobile the shoulders are, maybe how big of a chest you have, what you're kind of maneuvering around is going to determine where the head kind of flops. So some people can get their head all the way on the floor. That is not me. So always just kind of feeling into it. Good. Opening the eyes if they're closed, lifting the head. You're going to slide right arm, so right elbow comes underneath, then the left. Let's take one little sphinx. If you want to lift higher, elbows come off the mat, you can, or just keep the elbows down. Good. Okay. From here, we are simply going to roll onto our backs. So taking your time, coming onto your back. And we're going to find our supported bridge. So grab a hold of your block, bring the heels nice and close to your bum. And then what you're going to do is press into the heels, press into the feet, and lift your hips. Now, the goal perhaps is to get the block on its highest setting under sacral spine. Sacral spine exists in the back of the pelvis, okay? So we're not on the lower back. You want to be pretty much directly below your pubic bone, okay? That's where your sacral spine is. And these are actually bones, vertebrae that have fused together. So they're really, really strong. When we are first born, they're separate vertebrae. So your sacral spine has, I think, 5, and then your coccyx has 3 to 5. And then those two areas fuse into one bone. So they're really, really strong. If highest setting just isn't working for you, knock the block down onto mid setting, okay? Now from here, I'm not gonna actually not be too strict. So if you wanna take the feet a little wider than normal, if you wanna let the knees knock open, go for it. You might even feel comfortable just bringing the arms over the head, but just let your hips, let your lower back be super heavy. Just totally trust the block. Your pelvis and your sacral spine, they're really strong. Think about what your pelvis kind of goes through, especially for women, really strong area of the body. Now, if you want to deepen this, you can start to walk the feet forwards. Now, maybe you can totally straighten the legs. So you're taking a back bend. If this feels too tight on the abdomen, across the front of the hips, or you get a pinching sensation in the back, then walk the feet a little bit further in. You can also play around with just slightly moving the block a little bit further down. So heading into sort of butt cheek area. That can sometimes help us not hinge on the lower back as much. And again, those arms can be over the head or down by the sides. Nice. And we're just going to transition into a quick little supported inversion. So just gently walk those feet in, maybe keeping the eyes totally closed. Lift the bum, transition the block onto its lowest setting, and just let the hips come back down. And then just gently carry those legs up to the sky. Arms might follow. Again, just focus on that heaviness, that widening, that opening in that lower back. And just kind of drift away here. Gently start to deepen the breath, wiggle the fingers and the toes, and maybe just slowly swirl the feet and the hands back down, making contact with the mat, lifting the bum, moving the block and bringing those hips back down onto the floor. Collect one knee and then the other to the chest, just drawing the knees in, maybe taking a gentle sway from side to side, just taking these last few moments to massage out that lower back. And then releasing one leg and then the other, turning the palms to face up and just surrendering into your Shavasana. Gently begin deepening the breath again. Just exploring that movement in the chest, in the ribs, in the shoulders. Wiggling in your fingers, wiggling in your toes. Maybe even bringing a little bit of movement into your neck. And then we're going to take a really big stretch. So zip the legs together, point the toes, interlace your fingers, flip the palms, extend the arms over the head, and take a massive inhale here. Lengthen the body from toes to palms. And then when you're ready, exhale all of that breath out of the mouth, just letting it all go. Keeping the eyes closed if you can. Rolling over onto the left or the right hand side. This is called embryo pose. This rebirth. Keeping eyes closed, we push ourselves into a comfortable seated position. Closing the palms around the knees, fingers curling around the kneecaps. Drop the shoulders away from the ears, pressing sit bones down, growing through the crown of the head. Just feeling into the natural curves of the spine, the inward movements, the outward movements, this S curve. And then bringing those hands high above the head, palms come high. Once the palms are together, drop the thumbs to the space between the brow for kindness in your thoughts, to the lips for kindness in your words. And then resting the hands at heart center for you to carry kindness, compassion, and action through the rest of your day. Opening the eyes. Well done. Namaste. Well done. Hopefully your back feels well and truly loved up. If you've got any questions, like always, let me know.